While the distinguished panels tomorrow will discuss Hurston's great contributions as folklorist, anthropologist, short story writer, novelist, essayist, letter writer, a collection of which is beautifully collated by Carla Kaplan, concert choreographer, the subject of two wonderful biographies by Robert Hemingway and Valerie Boyd, the subject of countless essays, dissertations, and books, and simply put, one of the most influential literary artists of the 20th century. It is her work as a dramatist, theater director, and drama coach that I would like to illuminate. Hurston came to the theater already familiar with its workings. In her teens, she worked backstage over a year for a Gilbert and Sullivan traveling troupe. At Howard University, she was under the tutelage of Alain Locke and Montgomery Gregory, both of whom emphasized theater and drama as important outlets for African-American expression in the arts. By the time of her adulthood, Hurston was well equipped to direct, write plays, and teach drama. According to Kathy Perkins, Hurston wrote over a dozen plays, and there's an edited project of the collected plays of Zora Neale Hurston. She was a drama coach teacher at several colleges and universities during her lifetime, and was involved on several levels, playwright and director, for the New York Negro unit of the Federal Theater Project. Her first play, Color Struck, which will be performed in part tonight, was written around 1925, published in the radical one-issue magazine Fire in 1926, and received second prize in Opportunity Magazine's playwriting contest. Another play by Hurston, Spears, also received honorable mention the same year. The following year, 1927, Hurston's play, based on the biblical characters of Noah and his family, titled The First One, was published. From approximately 1930 to 1931, Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes began collaborating on a comic play about Negro life titled Mule Bone. Regrettably, the relationship, which started out promisingly between these two great authors, disintegrated. The biographers of Hurston and Hughes have grappled with their falling out, which led to the collapse of the Mule Bone project. Now, much has been written and speculated as to why the falling out occurred. I would simply like to suggest and add that talent, especially talent in the theater, could be a cauldron. Passions run high. It's not like writing alone, where you're all by yourself. Artists are encouraged to stimulate their feelings in a public forum. And conflict, which is in many ways key to drama and comedy, are encouraged to rise. Two passionate people like Hurston and Hughes would be likely to chafe and clash, especially when artistic endeavors are at stake. Now, other great collisions have been in the theater, and one of the most famous ones is the Konstantin Stanislavski-Anton Chekhov. And in American acting, the group theater was known for its controversial falling out. But often, in the case of white artists, institutional support systems were in place to act as safety nets. The Moscow Art Theater, with its resources, could bring Stanislavski and Chekhov to reconciliation, at the very least a temporary truce. But what and who was there to intervene for Hurston and Hughes? There was one secretary they both shared, who was likely overwhelmed and in awe of the talent in her midst. One sponsor, Charlotte Mason, who dangled her financial support based on her own ideas, which were often subject to her caprices. Where other artistic falling outs might have third parties or whole groups to intercede in the theater, Hurston and Hughes struggled over the few chances available to black creative artists at the time. Now remember, we're in the midst of the Depression. Money is scarce, and the wheels of Jim Crow segregation grind, narrowing opportunities for black artists. So, when temperaments and passions flare, attitudes ultimately decide, you go your way, I'll go mine, and what is lost is the culminating theatrical event. But both Hurston and Hughes remained faithful to the theater. In 1931, Hurston wrote sketches and stage scenes for her Broadway revue, Fast and Furious. It featured Jackie Moms Mabley as well as Hurston as a performer. Also around 1931, Hurston wrote an essay titled Characteristics of Negro Expression, which was eventually published in Nancy Cunard's compendium Negro in 1934. This essay might be one of the most important documents on performance studies, and certainly one of the earliest documents that examines the concepts of performing identity, the performative body, and speech act theory, subjects that would rise to importance later in the century in the works of J.L. Austin, Judith Butler, and a host of other contemporary scholars. Hurston's most well-known production, a concert theater piece with dancing, singing, and various scenes, was titled A Great Day. It was written in 1932 and later retitled From Sun to Sun and Singing Steel. A Great Day is based on material collected during her research in the Bahamas and the rural South. Anthea Kraut has done a remarkable job of recreating the texts, performances, and dancing in each of the various productions of this piece. Hurston also wrote several short plays or skits, some of which found their ways into her concert pieces in various forms. Among just some of the titles are Cold Keener, Polk County, Lawing and Jawing, 40 Yards, Woofing, and The Fiery Chariot, and more. But it is the play Colorstruck where I want to conclude and introduce the performers. Now, Colorstruck deals with a number of themes, including colorism, migration, cakewalking, and African-American life in the rural South. Colorstruck has often been dismissed by scholars as a play depicting a self-effacing character whose jealousies and self-depreciation make her shrill and unappealing. One scholar sums up the general consensus. Hurston's insecure heroine, Emma, remains firmly convinced that her dark skin color makes her unlovable. For this reason, she has rejected a black lover, John, jealously believing that he is desirous of lighter women. Another scholar calls the protagonist a, quote, clinging vine woman obsessed with the dynamics of interracial color prejudice, unquote. I disagree completely. I believe Emma, while imperfect, is the subject of a tragic story, made evident by Hurston's